Good to go. Good to go. All right. So hello, everybody. I want to introduce you to Mayra Machuca. Mayra is literally a world expert in VR. She did her PhD in VR. I could not find you a better teacher if I tried. She is awesome. And I'll let her talk to you about VR. This is the last warm-up tutorial before the game jam this weekend, starting on Friday. So we hope to see you all there. If you haven't already registered, please do. Please talk to Emily as well, because every time you participate in a tutorial, we take your attendance and you get put in for a raffle, and there are some great prizes. The game jam is in person, so I'll see you all in person, all of you online people in person tomorrow. All right, take it away, Mayra.
All right, so let me just share my screen because, of course, this is. Hello. Oh, there, it is on me. Now I want to share my screen. Hey, where is this screen? Okay, so everyone does see the PowerPoint presentation? No, everyone? Not everyone. Okay, so yeah, well, this turned on because it's always like slow. I just want to say that VR like development is like really exciting and really cool, but it's also a pain in the ass. So if you're like really want to like work on this field, you need to be like able to understand that it's going to be frustrating. But it's not because you don't know, it's because the technology changes so fast that like what I teach you now, probably like in 6 months, it will be like this headset will be like obsolete and there's a new headset. So just keep that in mind because like I have a 4-year like lecture of VR and we spent like 3 labs already like trying to export applications from their computers to the headsets. And it's still a work in progress. So yeah, just keep that in mind. So it is like amazing and I do recommend working in VR. It's just like keep in mind that it is quite frustrating because you are working with hardware and when you're working with hardware, you depend on the company that makes the hardware. So that is like, oh yes, the company decides to die. Nothing you can do. But yeah, just as Rina said, my name is Mayra Barrera. I'm assistant professor here at Dalhousie, and my focus is in VR. I do a little bit of games, mostly because I work with Rina, and Rina is expert in games. And yeah, before started, I want to do the land of knowledge. Dalhousie is at the university located in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq, and we acknowledge the nations, contributions, and legacies of the African Nova Scotian people and communities who have been here for 400 years, and we are all treated people. So a little bit about myself, just so you know, like, oh, who's this person talking here? As I say, I'm assistant professor at Dalhousie. I am from Mexico, so I do speak Spanish and like fluently. And I did my undergrad in Mexico. My degree is actually in animation and digital art. So it's not computer science, so it's more like the artist stuff. But I have a computer science master's at the University of Tasmania in Australia and a computer science PhD in Simon Fraser University. So I do know about computer science. And I have also worked a lot with industry, which, for example, I work with Adobe Research on like research projects, but I also work in like local companies in Vancouver, like Vitro, which is a company who works in VR and language training. So basically what they do is they have like avatars that people like talk, and you talk with the avatars. And that's what I say, like this technology is happening there because even like industry, every time like the technology changes, they're like, again, really? And I will explain when like talk about like whether you need to like develop some of the kinks of like why this is like so fun. But yeah, today I like before I like go like talk about headsets and like working with headsets, I want to explain what is virtual reality, what is augmented reality, what is mixed reality, what is the metaverse, because these are all these terms that sometimes is confusing. And when you're like developing this, you need to see them not as like a user, but as a developer, and they have like different characteristics. Also, I will talk about like what do you need to develop games in VR. We will have the headsets like here during the game jam. So if you want to do like work on this, you are more than welcome. And I can like offer help and give resources to how to develop. And yeah, then we are just going to play VR. I don't know, have any of you like used VR before? Okay, great. So maybe just I will like go a little bit more deep into like what do you need to develop using Unity, because that's what I mostly use. So yeah, this is like I would say like a really good plot to explain what is like virtual reality and all these technologies from like a research or more like designer perspective. And basically, if you see, we have on this side reality, which is like where we have no, everything is real, you can touch everything, you can see everything, you can feel everything. And on the other side, we have what is called virtual reality, completely virtual. You can like right now, you cannot touch, you cannot feel, but you can see. And in between, you have all these technologies that are either like a mix between reality and augmented reality, or augmented reality and reality. And because like this has terms like they're like, oh, what these terms are, they're really confused. People say everything between reality and virtual reality is called mixed reality. So I don't know if you have heard some of like this term. So I think one like the less used right now is augmented reality. Sorry, no, augmented virtuality. And why is not used? Because what this means is that you have real world content in the virtual world. And this is difficult to achieve because you have to like be tracking the real people in the virtual world. And there's like, oh, how do you track that? That is like not 100% like done. I will show some examples of like what people are trying to do, but you will see they're quite fun. But the virtual reality, they're like in the past 10 years, they have like really big push. You can buy these headsets for $100. Augmented reality is also like really big push. If you have a cell phone like mine, you can use augmented reality, all these filters in like Snapchat, TikTok, whatever, that's augmented reality. And yeah, we live in reality, but augmented reality is the one that is still not really explored. So what do you need, like, for example, to like use this type of technologies? So in this scale, we have virtual reality, we have headsets like the ones you have. The main characteristics is that you do not see the real world. And then we have this virtual augmented virtuality, which I say is like not real, like right now, like really common or commercial. But an example will be you're using VR, and instead of like using a controller, you'd like touch your skin or like use biosensors to like control the environment. Or you're like using augmented reality, like virtual reality, and then you're like walking and a door opens and you see like what's on the other side of the like room. So that's like what is virtual augmented virtuality. Augmented reality, there's like two types. So we have the augmented headsets and augmented reality with mobile phones. Usually it is known that this is less like immersive than this one, and this is less expensive than this one, and so. And yeah, as I said, like basically, like just the technology kind of like says what is in what part of the continuum, which I saw here, but like actually like not really. So you can have this headset and you use the camera of this headset and you see like the real world and you're using augmented reality, even if it's like a headset which is for virtual reality. So it is like really mixed. So yeah, talking about like more specific definitions. So like once you start like developing games or developing like applications, you do need to like start to see what are the characteristics of like these devices and for these interfaces. So what is virtual reality? Is a simulated experience that employs both the pose tracking of the user and the have 3D objects near the eye display to give user an immersion of being immersed in the environment. So what this means is that users need to have like these three characteristics. The first one is a sense of immersion. Basically, like once you put your headset, you need to like imagine, or you need to feel that you're in that new environment. And if you have ever seen like one of those videos of people like, with a headset and screaming and like all afraid, that they're like completely immersed in that experience. What you also need to do to be like virtual reality, you have to have real-time interactivity. Right now, this is like almost like happening. You move your arm, something happens. You move your head, something happens. And the final is you need to have independence. And this is like one really important, which is like less use, which means that the user is the one that's controlling where the camera moves. So if you have an experience and the camera is moving, like those games that is like shooters on rails, but the camera moves and the user is just like floating with them, that won't be a really like virtual reality experience because the user is not controlling the movement. And if you see like this diagram, which is from like Rikimoto, a really important researcher, basically saying in virtual reality, you have your created virtual world, which the user is wholly immersed. And there is a separation between like the real world and the virtual world. So when you're like designing a virtual experience, you basically need to think that the user is only inside the virtual environment, only interacts with the virtual environment, and whatever happens in the reality outside, it doesn't matter. Now, on the other hand, we have augmented reality. And basically, again, what is augmented reality? It's an interactive experience that combines both the real world and accurately registered objects and allows a real-time interaction. So if you see like both augmented reality and virtual reality and augmented reality have this sense of like interactivity, which is really important because if you're like just seeing like, I don't know, a virtual object of a bottle, but it does nothing, it's like not a real virtual augmented reality experience. It's just like a floating object. You should be able to interact with that. So again, what are the characteristics? The most important for augmented reality is that it combines real and virtual images, so you can see both at the same time. Also, as I said, you have interactivity. You should be able to interact with the virtual object. And for augmented reality, the most important part is that it's registered in the real world. which means that if you have a virtual object and put it on the table, you expect that object to be on the table. So even if you move here, the object don't look like floating or don't look like here. Or if you put it on the table, so then the object don't fall behind the table. So, and that's like this, like register in 3D is like really, really difficult because you should be able to understand like, oh, where every object is and where, like how far away, how deep it is. And yes, again, like going to Rikimoto, basically in this diagram clearly explains you have the people, which is inside the real world, but there's like a interface or a layer between what they do and what they see. So they see the real world with something added, and they interact with the real world with something added. So that's the main difference between like virtual reality and augmented reality. Now we have like, as I said, we have two types of augmented reality, what is called strong and what is called weak. Weak augmented reality basically is what you can like get with the mobile phones. And right now, like these are getting like really good, but in the past, these were like really imprecise. So you were like trying to track, but things were floating around and it was like really not like immersed. Also, it has a little knowledge of the environment. So basically, like, because you can only see what the camera is here, it cannot know, like, if I come see here, I don't know, like, oh, there's something coming here. So that means like little knowledge of the environment. And it also have limited interactivity. Why? Because you need to touch the screen of your phone to interact with whatever you are doing. So if you have like there's Pokemon Go, instead of like being able to grab the object and like move the Pokemon, you can have to like click it in your phone mobile screen. The opposite of that is actually what's called strong augmented reality. This is like very accurate tracking. Usually like these headsets, like the HoloLens and others, do map the whole room. So you have to map the whole room. Once you map the whole room, like the headset will know like where every object of the room is. So you can be able to like turn around and position it really accurate. Also, it's a more seamless integration with the real world because you are not like holding the device and usually try to cover your whole field of view. So you will see like the devices everywhere, like the virtual objects all around you. And yeah, they do have like natural interactions because you're in theory, you can grab something and move around. And yeah, most of these devices are head-worn augmented reality. And the question is, oh, why do we have like virtual reality devices and not augmented reality devices? Or why they're like really expensive? And it's because like this technology is more difficult to like create. Why it's difficult? Because usually you have like a single lens. So you need to have like a really like thin display to like render everything. And in this one, the way they work, I don't know if you see me. Basically, like this is really thick because there's like full of lenses, all of this. So you have the display, you have lenses, and you have like all of these to cover. If you have an augmented reality device, you don't have that. So basically, you need to have it like uncovered. And yes, so going about our different like topics, I was like what's mixed reality. So basically, mixed reality is merging both the real world and the computer generated environment together. So if you like see this definition of like, oh, this sounds like really, really similar to what augmented reality is, what's the difference? The first difference is like this is more like a generic term, so everything can be mixed reality. You can say virtual reality is mixed reality a little bit if you like mix have like videos, but it's like not. It doesn't have the definition of like, oh, you have like these three characteristics that you need. And also, why is like this really generic? Because like this mixed reality like name was really pushed by Microsoft when they like handled like the HoloLens. Basically, like say like, oh, the HoloLens is something new, and it's not augmented reality because it's new and something new now it's going to be called mixed reality. And as I say, like that happens a lot, and that's why I say like when you're working in this space, sometimes it gets like really difficult to say like, what are you doing? Because companies come with something new and they want to like commercialize and they want to do publishing and advertisement, and they come with like these random terms. It's like, why did you call this mixed reality when they have like 20 years of augmented reality? Because this is new. And yeah, as I say, like the metaverse is a new word that came like 2-3 years ago. And now you hear like, oh, what is the metaverse? If you go and hear like the definition or read the definition, says it's an immersive virtual environment where users can connect with either virtual reality or augmented reality using the internet. And say hypothetically it should be like one single virtual world for every single user, like one single internet. But as you see, like these ones, again, it doesn't explain what the user can do or what the technology should do. It's like a really, really generic like definition. And now, what is also like generic is that they both like access both virtual reality and augmented reality headsets. But if like for example, like me, that I see this is like metaverse is just pushed by Facebook. They changed even their name to Meta because they can. But if you're like start like telling this idea, what they really want to do is like this social VR, saying, okay, people will be in these virtual environments and they will interact with other people. And every time like I talk with someone, because I have people researching like these type of new topics, I say like, okay, guys, tell me what is the metaverse and what is different from like Second Life. And everyone is like, I don't know. So I will show like a couple of videos. And the first one is like the metaverse. I don't know if I can show online. So I guess like online people, if you cannot see my video, let me know. Okay. Can you see my screen online? Or do you see the... Okay. Can you see now the Second Life?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the Second Life trailer of 2003. So this was like 20 years ago. And like, I want you to see it and actually like think, what is this difference to the definition of metaverse that was like released like 2 years ago? So yeah, like this is, if you see this and you see the definition, and I put like before, I hope I can like show this, where is the definition? Okay, so. Can you see my screen online? Emily, can you see my screen online? Okay, so yeah, basically you see it is was Second Life an immersive virtual environment? Yes. Has like social connection with people? Yes. Was like a single place where people can do it? Yes. So say like, oh, the only difference is like you cannot use a VR or AR headset to connect. But the thing is like, yes, you could. If you have the technology in 2002 to connect to Second Life, you can do it. So I have like explained a lot like, oh, what actually people call about metaverse. And I will show like an example of what like metaverse is here. You say like, this is the funniest thing ever. So let me show it. If I can find my. I don't know if you can hear my screen.
Hi there, everyone.
So this is what people are calling metaverse right now.
First and foremost, welcome to the office. Yes.
So it is a virtual world, yes. It is connect people, yes. And what is like new? You have a face of someone being recorded. So you say like, okay, so what there are people like considering right now the metaverse? It's just like an online office where like your companies know that you're always online because they have your video all the time. So this is like, okay, are we actually like going forward with this new term, like term, or actually going backwards? Because it's like, how many people actually want to have their face like 24 hours working? Like, yeah, see my face when.
It's about 25.
So it is really weird. I do find this like hilariously weird.
Most of us come from different cities and have never actually met.
And what is more funny is that you cannot use a headset to like join this environment. You use like computer and your camera.
All the way down the Jeju.
So it is like this type of like, so when you're like, I want to say like, this is like technology, like yes, new like terms like metaverse, and probably in like 5 years, someone else will come with like super metaverse or whatever. But you need to be aware that yes, they're funny and yes, they're like the advertisement, but what is like really important are like what I was like showing at the beginning, which is like, okay, what are actually the characteristics and how people actually interact? Because like the interaction, how people play with your games or play with your applications are actually what is going to matter and what's going to make your like application different of having your video there. So yeah, in summary, just to finish like this intro, because I know I have talked for like half an hour. The line between technologies is not clear. So don't feel like if you're like working on a project, like, oh, I want to be like virtual reality. It needs to be virtual reality. Or if you want to like work project, I want augmented reality, it needs to be augmented reality. So only headsets. Like that's not important. So it's like, and it's not clear, like even like experts now, like what type of project is this? We don't know. But if it's fun and it's like nice, then it should like, you should be able to work it. Also, like what is important is the, like more important than the name that you give of what you're developing is how you use the technology. And that the project is fit to your technology. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And yeah, finally, remember that the name was given to, sometimes like the names are given for companies and the name games like change of like popularity. So maybe you start working now, you have an idea and say, okay, I will use Metaverse, my Metaverse company, because this is like what people are buying. But if in 5 years another company comes with like super Metaverse, like don't feel afraid that you, oh, now my company is super Metaverse. And like that won't affect what you are developing. Do you have any questions about this? Questions online? I don't think so, sadly. Okay, so now for like the actual topic of the tutorial, why do you need to develop games in virtual, augmented, and virtual reality? Sorry, mixed reality. So what you really need to do first is select a project that will benefit from virtual, augmented, or mixed reality. So I say, like I already said, the characteristics, virtual reality, you have this sense of immersion, real-time interactivity, and independence of user moving. For augmented reality, you need to combine real and virtual images, have real-time interactivity, and actually be able to like correctly map the real world. So I have like 4 examples here, like in the screen. And like, I don't know, like any guess, like the first, like this game, Minesweeper, do you think it would be like a good port for virtual augmented reality? Yeah, I also think this would like really weird. The second game, which is more like an RPG, something. So I think an RPG would like really be good for like virtual reality, but let's go for augmented reality. Why? Because then you will feel like lose that sense of immersion that you're like this wizard or whatever you're doing, because you see like people normally walking. Unless you're like are conscious and your project will like change the appearance of every person that goes into the view of the user, then you're stuck with virtual reality. And then yes, another project which is really good is just emulate projects that have like in real life or games that are in real life that have this sense of special. So one game, and right now like there's a really popular game in VR which is called 11 Table Tennis, which is like table tennis. If you like table tennis, like this game is like really good. I do recommend. But also like this type of puzzles that you say, oh, this is like a really small wooden puzzle, but this one will be like really good for virtual reality. Why? Because like you can rotate it, you can see in 3D, and you can like better understand like what's happening. So this kind of idea, so this is like the first step. But also there's another step, and you say like, okay, you know what, I want to do this game, this is my idea. So what you need to do is also like another way to approach a project is to find a way to enhance a game using virtual, augmented, or mixed reality characteristics. So in this here, I have an example, which is actually like a project which Derek Riley did, which is another of professors here. So you have Tetris, and you say, okay, Tetris is not a game that you can actually use in virtual reality because like you just have shapes and you have controllers and you change. But what he did is actually say, okay, you know what? Mixed reality is perfect for Tetris because I want this to be like an interactive experience with many people. So what they did is they project in a building, like if you see here, the screen is Tetris, so I'm going to explain Tetris. And what they did also was like, okay, people to control the Tetris, instead of like playing with a controller, they will do movements with their body. So if you wanted to do a land, you will have to move your hand like here. If you wanted to do like the, I don't know, like the L, you have to sit and like do your hands. So that kind of like ideas can also work. So don't feel like, oh, only like, I don't know, RPGs and like game, like sports and like puzzles can work. You can also like, you have your creativity, and that's where like game design comes from. To say like, okay, if I want this game because it's my favorite game, Tetris is like what I live for. Yes, you can do a mixed reality project on that. You just need to like start to think outside the box and how would you do it. The second step is actually select the appropriate technology. So basically, here are examples. You can use the headset. These devices are going to be here, and I'm going to explain a little bit better how to like develop those. You have mobile phones. So for these devices, there are like different ways. So if you use a setter to a computer, you usually develop an executable like a computer programmer, and you just like develop this. For these headsets, especially the Quests, these are like actually Androids. So you just develop an APK and you export to there, and you have your game. For mobile phones, you do an APK or like an Apple, I don't remember what the name of the Apple applications are. For like these ones, it's also usually they're like Android based. So also you have APKs and you develop and put your APK to the headset. But if you have a mixed reality project like the one I'm like show here, so like that one, you actually need they're like a little bit more complex and require more planning because you both need to measure how like big the room is and how far away it is and how many people are going to go. And in the case of the Tetris, they use like a Kinect sensor to actually see how the people are moving to create the shape. So you see this planning of how you will like do this Tetris require you to measure like the Kinect, how far away the field of view is, and which is like the track area and where the people are going to enter and where they're going to move and whatnot. So that's why this type of projects are a little bit more difficult because require actually you like going actually measuring the room and knowing a little bit more of the technology. But like all of these, if you can develop for like mobile phones or like any like computer programmer, you like can do them like right now. Now the third step, actually you need to do like select a game engine. There are two main game engines to develop VR head projects. The one is Unity. Do you know how to use Unity?
No, got something for you.
Okay, well, the Unity is good because it's already a game engine, and most of the headsets have like packages, which is like the things that you export into Unity. That in theory, and I put like a big in theory, you should be able to drag and drop everything and have it working. But this is like a big in theory it should work. But if you're like the problem with Unity, okay, Unity is you develop in C# and it's like a closed commercial software. So you need to install Unity and like you need to develop that. But if you're like against like closed commercial software and want to do something more open source, you're gonna have to have like something like WebGL and Babylon.js, which is like a game engine using JavaScript. And basically you like render it in a web engine. So the advantage from over using Babylon over Unity is that in Babylon you don't even need to install anything onto the headset. You just need to open the browser in the headset and be able to run your game. In Unity, you actually need to like push the APK to the headset. The advantage of Unity over Babylon is that Unity you can find like 20,000 resources of how to develop VR games. Babylon is a little bit more like new, less people use it. So if like, for example, this weekend, if you find someone who knows Unity, because I know like the game class like use Unity in this, you can like easily export your project to VR. So if you want to use that, you can do it. Babylon, like as they like, it requires a little bit more trying and knowing like how to install everything, but it is also easy and it's JavaScript. So if you have like the web developer and know JavaScript, you should be able to do it. So now I will have it over here. So and I can share these. These are like the first resources I have for my lab. So as I say, and you will find this changed so fast that the easiest way to like do something is just go to Google, find what is the latest tutorial, and use it. So like this is the link that we're like following, and it's actually like if you follow this, you should be able to convert your game from like normal game to VR game. But basically, like it is a pain in the ass. So you need to like come with like open mind, like really like say, okay, like while the game is like being developed, I will like do this step by step. It may be easy, it may be difficult. So, and here explains everything, how to download Unity, how to like set the engine, which type of engine. But basically what you're doing in Unity is, where is it? Like installing the package of Android. So like in Unity, you will install Android, and that is like, when you have that, you will install it and you'll be able to do it. And then you need like to do the XR related package. So I will like show it. I think I remember. Unity, I never developed this. I hear you. So yeah, you see, like Unity is open.
Yeah, basically you need to do basically like some of the so it's like this one you need to download it. Then it's like the Dalhousie and the once you install it, you basically you yeah. Basically you just like drag and drop the project. And once you connect your headset to the computer, you will be able to see it. But as I say, like you should be able to see it not because of Unity, not because of like computer, but like data. It's really difficult. So basically, for your computer, you need to so you as I like just follow this. Yeah, like this step, the step 7, that's what it is because these steps, like you need to like register Meta using your Meta account. And like on the like 6 months, Meta requires a Facebook account. But right now you can like create a new Meta account with your email. Once you register a Meta account to your email, it will like show you what to do, and then you should be able to like just play with Unity. Right? And you'll be able to see it there. So if your computer doesn't have like good CPU, or doesn't have a GPU like you won't be able to do that. Then you need to like create an APK and this is like ADO, it's called the APK. So I say like these are like 20 different steps that you need to do. And I will have this document. But this is very important. It's not like I'm doing an expert, like yes, they change this for us. But this I do. There's no problem of going on. Yeah, and then here is another example. And here it explains how to like actually implement this. Yeah, this is what the beginning direction. Yeah, basically like this is the step where I say like if you're working in the woods on a project in Unity, you can like spend a little bit like time, it might take like 1 and 3 hours and convert it to VR. And that should be able to work. But if it's not because like don't feel frustrated, it's because the process is like really long. Yeah. So do you have any questions? So I think I was going to have like a demo where you go to VR, so you have never had VR. So if you're online, everything is follow here. Yeah, if you are here, like you can do that. And yeah, before like I leave, it's like yeah, if you're interested in VR research or VR game research, you can contact me or Rina, and we are more than happy to like do research on that. We're looking for students for like the summer. If you're like interested in AA with us, like you're more than welcome. We have multiple points.
So true.
So yeah, I don't know, like just put the headset and like with it, if you are like want have an idea of something you want to tell me like, oh, I want to do this in the exam, it's possible, and I'll have to do that.